Hey, Jennifer, you remember that TV show, Reading Rainbow?
Oh yeah, that was an awesome show.
How did that song go again?
Well, today's LeVar Burton would probably sing it Butterfly in the Sky. I'd like to see a bitch try.
Hello, and welcome to Moms for Book Liberty.
The podcast where a couple of moms fight back against groups trying to control what our kids can read.
With each episode focusing on a specific book that has found itself on the chopping block of censorship. So tell me about today's LeVar Burton, because I don't think I caught that memo.
So he just hosted the National Book Awards.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
He's a great host for that.
Great host, perfect.
Okay.
And before he started, he said, "Before we get going, are there any moms for liberty in the house? No? Good. Then hands will not need to be thrown tonight."
That is so funny. I love it.
You have to imagine how bad Moms for Liberty is to piss off LeVar Burton.
Exactly.
Oprah was also there, and she spoke out about book bans.
Oh, okay.
So she had a few standout quotes. So she said, "Make no mistake, to ban books is to snuff out the flame of truth of what it means to be alive, what it means to be aware, what it means to be engaged in the world. To ban books is to cut us off from one another."
Wow.
And then she also said, "Books have rescued me. Books have delivered me. Books have exalted me."
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, lots of...
I just got the chills. Oprah said that.
Oprah said that, yeah.
Oh man, she's awesome. And she's one of the, I think, is it producers or something, for the movie that comes out on Christmas Day, The Color Purple.
Yep.
So, yeah, I can't wait.
She was in the original movie too, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's definitely a connection there. But I can't wait to reread that book and cover it on this podcast,
Yes.
and then watch the movie.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
I don't think I'll be able to watch it on Christmas because we're flying out to Michigan the next day, but
Oh.
yeah. I don't
Well,
know.
once you get there.
I feel like my kids would be mad at me if I was like, okay, Christmas is over, I'm going to the movies. Because they're not going to want to go see
That's
that.
true.
They're too young for that. But speaking of Moms for Liberty, don't we have an update?
There is an update, but before I get to that,
Okay.
I haven't told you about this, and
Ooh.
I don't know if you've heard of it,
Probably not. I live under a rock.
but Moms for Liberty has once again been shown to be who they really are.
Extremist hateful
Yes.
group. Got
So
it.
we have two cheerleaders from Kentucky
Oh, no.
who were posing and proudly posting this on their Facebook pages with the Proud Boys,
Oh, you
And-
gotta be kidding me.
throwing up the white power sign.
They're not even pretending
Not
to
even.
not know?
Well, now, of course, now they're trying to twist it
Of
and
course,
be like,
they're trying
no.
to backtrack like they did when they quoted Hitler.
Yes, exactly. So, first of all, the national chapter is trying to distance them.
Oh, so
distance
this was the
themselves.
Kentucky?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the national chapter is the one that quoted Hitler, right?
No, it was another chapter.
Oh.
Well, they quote him all the time, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
feel
at
like
one point or
that's-
another
yeah.
they did.
Okay.
But when it became like a national thing, it was because of another chapter.
Oh, okay.
And of course, they try to claim like, oh, well, we're not responsible for the chapters. Each one does
kind of
whatever.
are.
Exactly. So Moms for Liberty tweeted out, "Moms for Liberty is in no way affiliated with the Proud Boys and does not condone involvement with the organization. We repudiate hate and violence. We have been made aware that two chapter leaders have recently demonstrated a lack of judgment and misalignment with our core values. Due to this, those leaders have been removed from their positions.
Wow.
We will not allow the actions of a few to define the rest of our 130,000 members who, as joyful warriors, stand for truth, build
Joyful
relationships,
warriors.
and empower others." So they're distancing themselves.
Okay, well, I have to tell you something.
Go.
Because when I was running for school board in Flagler, the Moms for Liberty chapter here had a candidate forum at the local VFW, and I attended.
I was there.
Yeah, okay. Do you
We didn't know
remember?
each other then.
Oh, okay.
But there was a guy standing in the crowd with a mask. I
That
have
was
pictures.
a Proud Boy.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know for a fact he was a Proud Boy because later we looked him up on Facebook and he wouldn't shut up about how proud he was of being a Proud Boy. And so what this guy did was he tried to intimidate me while I was, answering the question.
Really?
And so no one else, he didn't do this for any other candidate, just me, because I was like the most liberal, I guess, whatever. And so he pulls out his phone right when I start speaking. He gets as close to me as possible, extends his arm like all the way away from his body, and he's got his phone and he's videoing me. And he's like I think that was an intimidation tactic.
Yeah.
I'm oblivious. I'm just like,
You're in your zone, so
I'm
you're
just
not paying
like,
attention.
This guy's whatever, like maybe he really likes me. But he's like head to toe tactical gear. His face is covered,
Yeah.
which is ironic because it's like he was the only one in the building wearing a quote mask.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, are you afraid of getting COVID? Like, what's the deal? But anyway, for the National Moms for Liberty to denounce the Kentucky chapter for an association with Proud Boys, they need to figure out if their other chapters are associated with the Proud Boys, because Flagler Moms for Liberty is most definitely associated with the Proud Boys. And they called on the Proud Boys to come to the government services building when the school board was having the meeting about All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson.
Yep.
So,
and the 3 percenters were there.
Yeah.
Which this is what this lady, Myrna Eads, and she's from Campbell County. She's a chair for the Campbell County chapter.
In Kentucky.
She's the one that was with the Proud Boys. There was 2 of them. The other one was Karen Strayer from Boone County. Mm-hmm. Myrna Eads was interviewed, and she actually ran for House District 68 state representative seat last year and lost.
Good.
Yep. And so she asked, like, what the white power sign, like, what it meant for them. And they were like, no, that's a 3 percenter sign. And that means, something else. And she went on to explain it. But there were no 3 percenters there. There were Proud Boys. And all the Proud Boys are throwing up the 3 percenter sign, supposedly. Mm-hmm. But what it really is white power.
Exactly.
Because they spread out your fingers. So the 3 is actually a W. And then the OK sign is the P for power.
Oh, okay.
So, they're trying to twist it to something it's not.
And clearly, like, the national chapter realizes that this looks bad.
But they're full of shit, too, because the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Bridget Ziegler, she was posing with Proud Boys, too.
Yeah.
So
it's the same exact thing when they had Hitler quoted in their newsletter, and they tried to backpedal that. It's the same exact thing.
But then they gave out an award to the lady who did that.
Yeah.
Or, like, honored her somehow at their summit.
Yeah.
They're full of shit.
Yeah. And it's interesting that they fired these 2, or, whatever, forced them to step down from their positions.
They're still listed on their website as a chair.
Well, what that means to me is that Moms for Liberty National is realizing how they are coming off. They're showing their true colors. And I watched a TikTok video, I think you sent it to me, Jennifer, of a dad who spoke up at a school board meeting in Virginia Beach, which we need more people to do. And we're seeing more and more people doing this. And we're seeing the effects, but we need more of it. But anyway, this guy's handle is Beezay at BEEZAY 22 on TikTok. And he just so succinctly summed up everything that Jennifer and I try to say in like every episode.
Yes.
But what did he say? He said, there's no right way to do the wrong thing.
Yes.
And I just love that because, so many people, including, the Moms for Liberty and Flagler, think that they're the good guys.
Exactly.
And he goes on to say in his video that, like, here's how you can tell they're not the good guys. They're labeled an extremist organization. They are seen with Proud Boys. They quote Hitler. They target marginalized groups. That's how you know they're not the good guys.
Right. As much as they want to play it up as though they are. Mm-hmm. And even now now they have this new program. I don't know if we mentioned this before, where like their new thing is they want to improve reading skills.
Oh, yeah. No, we did talk about that.
Okay.
Like, their whole thing is like, reading skills are abysmal, or reading levels are abysmal, which they are.
Yes.
COVID really played a role in that, and a lot of kids are struggling with reading, but, Moms for Liberty's tactics are doing the opposite.
Right.
In terms of raising reading scores, and we've talked about that in the last episode about the literal science and statistics for self-selection.
Yeah. We should put what he said on T-shirts.
Oh, there's no right way to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
To do a wrong thing. Yeah, that would be. Well,
I'm sure he'll probably do it soon too. But
you're the T-shirt queen, so
we should make one for ourselves.
Yeah, we should.
So yeah, that was, I thought, like really telling that once again we can see how they're affiliated with the wrong people.
Yeah, and this episode is covering Storm and Fury by Jennifer Armentrout, which has been challenged by a Moms for Liberty member, also who's also a school board candidate. And so we talked about that in the previous episode about, her calling the police and wasting, not only tax dollars, but important time from law enforcement on a friggin' book. But do we have an update on that?
Yes. So this is a very interesting update. So they claimed the 17-year-old checked out this book, right? And so when the cops were there, remember we talked about, she was there with her like 9-year-old daughter. And she said, no, it's not my child. So this Mom for Liberty school board candidate called the cops on a book that was checked out not by her daughter, but by somebody else's child.
A 17-year-old.
A 17-year-old. Mm-hmm. So now it comes out that the mom of the 17-year-old, they talk a lot about parental rights, right?
Right.
She didn't know what was going on.
Oh my God.
And so how she got talked into checking this book out was by another teacher. But this is one of their teachers, a Mom for Liberty teacher.
Yeah.
And she's responsible for a bunch of challenges to books.
The teacher is?
Yes.
Oh my God.
A bunch. So
this teacher coerced the 17-year-old in checking out this book?
Yes, and handing it over to them.
And then handing it over to Moms for Liberty?
Yes.
And the mom of the 17-year-old had no idea?
No idea. So now she's come out and she doesn't want to identify herself or her child.
Which I understand.
Right.
I would be very angry with that teacher.
Of course.
Not because, let me be clear, not because she's coercing her into checking out a book, but because she's involving her in a political scheme.
Exactly.
And that's
And we're talking about indoctrination, they're always talking about this. And look at what they're doing.
If it was a teacher that was like, hey, read this book. You would like this book. As a parent, I'd be like, fine. Teacher's recommending a book. That's totally fine. But like, hey, check this book out and then go tell the Moms for Liberty that you checked it out and you're concerned because it's got bad stuff in it. Like, what? You're using her as a pawn.
And that's exactly what the mom said. So the quote from the mom was that they're exploiting her daughter to push an agenda.
Wow. There's no way Jennifer Tapley is winning school board.
I really hope not. Come on, Florida.
I mean...
Come on, Santa Rosa County. Do your thing.
Well, especially now that Ron DeSantis isn't going to funnel hundreds of thousands of dollars of PAC money into defamation ads, but...
He's kind of broke now too, right?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that would make sense. All the money he spent on shipping immigrants to Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, and I think all his donors kind of backed out. Well, his donors are not giving him money. That's what I heard.
Anyway.
So don't quote me.
Not a podcast about Ron and his big boy boots.
No. So yeah, like this whole time, they were going around this parent's back to involve their daughter in some political bullshit.
That is just not surprising at all.
So...
Way to go, Moms for... Maybe the national chapter should get wind of this and remove Jennifer Tapley.
Yeah.
If they want to try and change their image to be, moms that just want to improve reading scores. This is not something that's going to improve anyone's reading score.
Now, unfortunately, I think last time we mentioned that the book had not officially been challenged and was still in the schools. But now they're saying that it's been quarantined.
Okay.
So we don't know when.
So it's official.
Yeah.
Quarantined. I love that that's the language that we use. Like, what a world.
Right.
We're talking about books being quarantined because of their potential to spread knowledge.
Yeah. It's some dark times we're going through right now.
No, it's so dark that you just have to laugh.
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
Like 3 years ago, quarantine meant something completely different. And now you're talking about quarantine.
And they were all about
books.
take off the mask.
Yeah.
But now they have no problem quarantining a book.
Or wearing full-on face masks to try and intimidate you.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're talking about Storm and Fury. You updated me. You gave me lots of juicy information. What else do you have? Or...
Well, that was kind of the update for what's going on with the book.
Okay.
So now we're just going to go into some details about the book. I'm going to read first the book jacket to give the reader's idea about the book.
That's a good idea.
And then when we get to anything that we feel, I'll give you like a little bit of just a backstory on it, and then we'll go into more spoilers.
Yeah.
So at that point,
I haven't read the book. I don't plan on reading the book because I have a long list of books. 1 that I want to read, 2 that I have to read.
Right.
And so this isn't one of those books that I'm going to read. So Jennifer's going to tell me the story. But if you do want to read this book and you don't want any spoilers, then listen for our warning and then you can, either fast forward 30 seconds or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So Storm and Fury is the first book in the Harbinger series. And then it has book 2, which is Rage and Ruin. Book 3, Grace and Glory. And this is a spin-off series from another series, the Dark Element series, which has White Hot Kiss, Stone Cold Touch, Every Last Breath, and a prequel, Bittersweet Love.
Okay.
So this is my kind of book, so now I want to read all of these.
So it's like the genre sort of is like fantasy, but it's like all the characters are somehow connected and there's like all these spin-off series. So I could really see someone getting into like all of the authors' books.
But you don't have to read the Dark Element series to start this series. Okay. So it's like, okay if you didn't, but some of the characters are mentioned in this book, but they're not main characters in this book. But they're likable, and I want to know their story. And
then it makes you want to go back and read the other ones.
So knowing now that that's what those are on, I want to read it.
All right, so I'm just going to read the book jacket. 18-year-old Trinity Morrow may be going blind, but she can see and communicate with ghosts and spirits. Her unique gift is part of a secret so dangerous that she's been in hiding for years, in an isolated compound fiercely guarded by wardens, gargoyles, shapeshifters, who protect humankind from demons. If the demons discover the truth about Trinity, they'll devour her flesh and bone to enhance their own powers. When wardens from another clan arrive with disturbing reports that something out there is killing both demons and wardens, Trinity's safe world implodes. Not the least because one of the outsiders is the most annoying and fascinating person she's ever met, Zane. Zane has secrets of his own that will upend her world yet again, but working together becomes imperative once demons breach the compound and Trinity's secret comes to light. To save her family and maybe the world, she'll have to put her trust in Zane, but all bets are off as a supernatural war is unleashed. Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's right up my alley, right? I like anything that has to do with fantasy and
Creatures,
vampires, you name it. So Trinity it's not explained in the beginning. And this is kind of a spoiler, but not really because they've already alluded to that. But she is half human, half angel.
Okay.
Which is known as a Nephilim.
Yeah, Nephilim. Yeah, we've read about that.
So she is adopted by these wardens because her family... Well, her dad is alive, but he's an angel and up in the sky, I guess.
That's right.
He's just not around. So she's adopted by these wardens to kind of keep her safe, right? Because she's a target. She's the only Nephilim alive.
So she's like...
The last.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So she's different.
She's different.
Okay.
But the wardens, most of them, and wardens are gargoyles.
Shapeshifters.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just another word for... In this book, they refer to them as wardens, but they're gargoyles.
Okay.
They are under the impression that she's just human. And so just a few select people there know who she really is. And that would be like her adoptive parents, which are Terry and Matthew.
Terry and Matthew. Those sound like boy names.
Yes. So that is a gay
Gay
couple.
Gargoyles?
Gay gargoyles. Which might be why Moms for Liberty had an issue with this. Maybe
well,
not.
I wouldn't put it past whoever. I don't know who they get these Moms for Liberty volunteers to like... You know, they trick them into thinking they're doing good things, right? They're saving the children, right? So I wouldn't put it past them, like, to have these volunteers just, like, typing on their computer, books with gay characters, right? And then what pops up? Storm and Fury. Oh, Storm and Fury has, you know, two gay gargoyles that take care of, you know, the main character, whatever. But because, like, there are so many books out there that have sexual scenes in them, but they're not on Moms for Liberty's radar.
Right.
So I really do think that the fact that there is a gay couple in this book, and they're not even a main character.
No, they're not main characters, but it drew their attention.
Yeah.
And they don't mention it in their little report that they do on the book, because their report is only like the issues they have. And so they don't mention it there, so it's subtle. I think they do that on purpose, so that they can be like, oh, see, no, we don't have an issue with that.
Exactly.
But, you know, I guess we'll never really know.
No, but I mean, but that's the thing, is if you look at the books that they have problems with, they're authors of color, or authors from the LGBTQ community, or both.
Right.
And also the one that we did about pumpkin heads, that one, I mean, I don't, and that was a low rating, but it was still on their website. Right. I think because the author's name is Rainbow.
Yeah, and well, they also had the bi character.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, and because there was,
So if you read between the lines, you can kind of figure out what their issues are.
But this book isn't about gay characters
at all.
It's about basically the relationship between Trinity and Zane, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
She's also bonded to a warden who she grew up with, and his name is Misha.
Okay.
So we have Trinity, Zane, Misha, Matthew, and Terry. Those are like the main characters. The real main characters are Trinity and Zane. It's their story.
Because isn't this sort of like a romance?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a, what do they call this? A romantasy?
Oh.
Romantasy?
I've never heard that. Romantasy. That makes sense, though. Romantasy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
So yeah, that's, you know, but there's not too much romance in this book. It's more of them, like, liking each other.
A lot of flirting.
Not even that much flirting, to be honest.
But when they do get together, it's a little steamy.
There's not that much steam in this book.
Okay.
Yeah, if I made the mistake of reading the book look, little
book
info,
report? Out of context.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, there seems to be a lot of kissing. I thought there was going to be like a lot of kissing, which I have no issue with kissing in a book. We see that on Disney movies and all sorts of things. Yeah. It's normal, right? We see people in the streets kissing. That's not something that should be in a book.
Right.
But I was like, okay.
The book,
right.
And then not that much kissing.
It's not as much kissing as it portrays it.
Because it's a thick book.
Yeah, it's like 500 pages.
Oh, 500.
503 pages.
That's a lot of pages.
Yeah.
Not a lot of those pages are
And I think you get to
intimate.
the one steamy scene at page like 380.
Oh, okay.
Around there.
Yeah.
So
Tell me the story.
So it starts off with Trinity growing up with Warden. She's the only human there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that brings its own issues, right? She's 18. She's never had a relationship because wardens stick with wardens. But there's this one warden who's giving her attention, and she's like excited to have some attention given to her. So the first chapter is about a kiss, just a kiss. She finally accepts this guy like to hang out.
What's his name?
Clay. So Clay, he invites her over back to his place to watch a movie, and he is going to kiss her, and she's excited about that. But then he starts feeling her up a little and starts like trying to grab her breasts.
So it says Clay's lips touched mine, and they were warm and dry. Surprise flickered through me. I thought they'd be, wetter. But it was nice, especially when the pressure of the kiss increased and his lips parted mine. And then it was more. His mouth moved against mine, and I kissed him back. I didn't want to stop him when the hand along the nape of my neck slid down my back to my hip. That felt nice too, and when he eased me down, I went with it, placing my hands on his shoulders as he hovered over me, using his arm to support his weight so he didn't crush me. We kissed, and those kisses weren't dry anymore. I liked the way his lower body had settled over mine and how it moved against mine, a mysterious rhythm that felt like it should be and could be more if I wanted that. Then his hand was under my shirt and up over my breast. Hold up. I reached down and grabbed his hand as I pulled away, separating his mouth from mine. Whoa. What? His eyes were still closed. His hand was still on my breast and his hips were still moving. I said just a kiss, I reminded him, tugging on his hand. That's more than a kiss. You're not having a good time? He pressed his mouth to mine, and that pressure was no longer nice. Irritation flared to life like a lit match. Tightening my hand on his arm, I pulled it out from under my shirt. I pushed on his chest, breaking the kiss. So that's the first thing that Moms for Liberty has a problem with.
Yes.
And to me, it just shows that, it's modeling a woman who is sticking up for herself and, that she didn't get consent to be treated like that.
So she said just a kiss. Mm-hmm. She consented to a kiss. He pushed it forward.
And then she fought back.
So what's the problem with that? I fail to see the issue there, like how that's something worth banning a book over.
Yeah. And this is, I got to preface, you guys, this is like a 10-page book report. So we're not going to be able to read everything, but I kind of looked at it, and a lot of it is just like flirting and like very innocent things, like not even kissing, but just sort of just like banter back and forth. Like obviously Zane, because this was Clay, but later on Zane and Trinity, they start to like flirt with each other, and it's so innocent flirting.
Yeah.
But that's like what the main book report is about.
And in the book report, it looks like it's more flirting than it actually is in like the book itself.
Yeah. Like, why do they have a problem with this one on page 125? What if he found me attractive? Yearning blossomed inside me like a flower seeking sun and water. It spread its roots deep. What if he wanted to kiss me? What the hell is wrong with that?
Right. What? I don't know.
Like, maybe they're like reading too much into the flower analogy.
Or yearning.
Oh yeah, maybe. It blossomed inside me like a flower. It spread its roots deep. Like maybe Moms for Liberty is like, oh, that means a penis.
Maybe.
Going into a vagina. Oh my God. See, that's the dirtiest that this is going to get, is me talking. The book doesn't say anything like that.
Shit.
What?
I don't know what I hit.
Jennifer's having technical difficulties. We're okay. All right. I'm not even going to edit that out. We're just going to keep going. So anyway, I interrupted you. So her first interaction is with this guy Clay, and it's not a good one.
It's not a good one. She kicks his ass.
Okay, that's good.
Misha, who's her warden, supposed to protect her, shows up, and like she's not supposed to be this strong, right? She's got extra angel strength.
Oh,
so
okay.
that kind of
gotta love the angel strength,
right? So her kicking his ass, and like she flung him out the window.
Ooh,
yeah.
Gotta love a badass, strong female character.
Exactly.
And Moms for Liberty doesn't.
No. So Misha's like, I did this to you. Like, do you get it? So he kind of like tells Clay, like, this was me. I kicked your ass. Like, this is the story we're going with.
Oh, so he has to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, if it gets out that she's got this extra strength,
then everyone's going to want to...
They're going to be suspicious. Yeah. Like, where'd that come from?
Right.
And he's trying to protect your secret. So they live on a compound of wardens. So they don't have much interaction with, like, the human world. So she's very limited to, like, how she's interacted with humans and, like, what life is outside of the compound. And there's been an increase of attacks from demons. So she doesn't listen very well when she's supposed to like stay hidden and Misha's supposed to go investigate like what's happening. She feels responsible because she thinks the demons are there looking for her. So she feels responsible when demons attack and like wardens die.
Oh yeah.
She feels like it's her fault. And she's powerful in her own right. So she feels like I should be out there defending and helping. So she doesn't listen very well. The thing is, she also has vision problems.
Oh.
So she has like tunnel vision and she's slowly losing her eyesight. So she's not defenseless, but she does have her own issues as well.
Didn't you say the author has the same vision condition, I'll say?
That is why the author, in her acknowledgments, she says that she included Trinity having this because it's the same progressive eye disease that she has.
Okay.
And so it's called retinitis pigmentosa. And it's a group of rather rare genetic disorders that involve the breakdown and eventual death of retina cells.
Wow. So this is a real disorder in a fantasy book where a character also experiences it, which is no pun intended, but visibility
Yes.
for diseases, in people with conditions or impairments. That I think that was just a cool aspect that the author actually wrote that into the main character about herself. So, and the fact that she's just such a strong female character, but she has this impairment, but it doesn't keep her from being a strong female character is really important for readers.
Yeah.
What female or not, or non-binary, whatever, any sort of reader that is a part of the, impairment community or whatever. Right. This is their, like I said, no pun intended, visibility of seeing an actually like strong badass of a character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is, again, very important, right? So where was I? She was being attacked by demons.
Yeah.
She doesn't listen. She goes out. They have a fight with like some lesser demons. As they call them lesser demons, which are like low level ones. And they're controlled by higher demons. It's a whole thing, right? Because of all the attacks, Zane comes to the community with two of the leaders from his compound.
Okay.
And so they usually don't have visitors because Terry and Matthew really try really hard to protect Trinity from visibility. So here comes Zane, and they have like an immediate, like, they just can't help but like sense each other. Yeah, like she always knows where he is. He always seems to find her, that kind of thing. Their first interaction is she's walking, right? And she doesn't have good vision, so like she doesn't like people sneaking up on her. He doesn't know that she has vision problems. So he's coming up behind her and she senses him and she's just been attacked. So she's on edge. So she turns around and she grabs his hand and she drops his ass.
Oh my God.
And he's like, what the fuck?
Like, I'm going to marry that girl.
Yeah. Well, at that point, right, he's just like, okay, you have problems.
Yeah.
And she's like, don't sneak up on me. So they keep having like these little like interactions like that where she's attacking him or like they're going back and forth.
Right.
They end up getting attacked again by demons.
Okay.
And this time it's one of the higher level demons that come in and they kidnap Misha, which is her warden.
Okay.
Which they have a bond. So if anything happens to Trinity, Misha automatically dies. Like if Trinity dies, Misha dies.
Okay.
But if Misha dies, Trinity just gets another warden bonded to her.
Okay.
But there's a link so she can sense if he's alive or dead. So she knows that he's still alive. So her goal now is to rescue Misha.
Okay.
So she tells Matthew and Terry, like, I'm going to go rescue him. You can't stop me. I'm 18. And so Zane is like, you can come, the demon that attacked you is usually around in my area. So, we can figure this out. So they go to Washington, which is Washington, D.C., where his compound is. But he lives on his own. And so because you're trying to protect Trinity from being discovered as non-human, they decide that the best option is for her to stay at his place instead of the compound.
Okay.
So a little bit of the one bed trope is in here.
And I bet he's like a perfect gentleman and offers to sleep on the floor.
Yes. Well, on the couch.
On the couch. Okay.
So he is a perfect gentleman. He treats her very respectfully. But they obviously now they're in close quarters. They're spending a lot of time together. So there's the connection between them grows. And they both sense it. Neither one of them really is acting on it.
I think at one point too, this might be before this part, but I know that Moms for Liberty made a note, and I'm not going to read it, but basically like she knocks on the door or something and he just got out of the shower and he's in a towel. Yeah. But like, I'm not going to read the scene, just because if I read everything from this book report, this episode would be really long. But basically he was just in a towel and she was attracted to him.
Right. And if you read it from like their perspective, like what they wrote or what they copied, it seems like it was a little bit more titillating than it was.
But nothing happened.
Nothing happened. And it's just,
he just answered the door.
He answered the door, fresh out of a shower.
Yeah.
And then he changed.
And she liked what she saw.
Right.
But you got to remember, this book is rated for like 7th grade and up.
Right.
And the character in this book is 18 years old.
Right.
Like, here's another one on page 191. I think they have a problem with the word pleasure, because this one says, I said it would be my pleasure, those pale eyes fixed on mine. Then your idea of pleasure must really differ from mine. You know, he rolled his lower lip between his teeth. I'm going to have to agree with that. Come on, get your blades, I'll walk you back. They don't even know what they're talking about because they haven't read the book.
Right.
These like 2 sentences or 3 sentences have been completely taken out of context. They think it's sexual in nature, but I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. I think that was after a fight.
Yeah, because the blades
that they had.
Yeah.
And not
because at first I thought it meant roller
demons,
but it didn't mean roller blades.
No.
It's not that kind of book. Moms for Liberty must have a problem with the word pleasure.
Or women having pleasure.
Yeah. Ooh.
They don't mind it when men have it.
You just hit the nail on the head. So they're in DC. She's sleeping in the bed and he's sleeping on the couch because he's a gentleman.
Yeah.
They're looking for Misha.
And along the way, obviously, there's a lot of fight scenes with other demons as they come across them. So demons are considered bad, right, in this book. Mm-hmm. Except Zane, he works with demons sometimes.
Okay.
So he introduces Trinity to some of the demons that he knows, which are some of the higher level ones, too. Mm-hmm.
And she realizes they're not all bad.
They're not all bad.
Interesting. That's a metaphor for something.
They're, right. You know, like not to judge people just based on what you've heard about their race. So yeah, there's that in the book as well. That's important. And then also like the wardens are supposed to be the good guys. Uh-huh. But a lot of wardens have tried to kill her. Okay. And so here's a spoiler.
Right. Oh, spoiler.
A warden killed her mom.
Okay.
So, you know, they're not all good either.
Right.
So you see the balance between what you consider good and bad, and you see that there's always the opposite. You know, just because they're considered bad, not everybody in that bad group is bad. Yeah. Not everybody in the good group is considered good.
Yeah. Just another example of a fantasy book that does a great job, it sounds like, of interweaving like real life themes. Yes. In terms of, you know, don't always judge a book by its cover, or in this case, you know, a person, whether or not they're a demon or a gargoyle, right. or black or brown, for example. So like, you know, I personally, I love it when books do that. Yeah. Especially when they're fantasy books geared towards younger audiences, like, you know, 14 and up. It's really important for those adolescents to see it in a different perspective. Exactly. And then of course, whether you do it consciously or subconsciously, they apply it to their lives. The readers apply it to their everyday lives.
Which is where the empathy comes in and why they keep saying these books are important. Mm-hmm. And she has that. She has that dialogue within herself, you know, like where she's talking to herself, Trinity, where she's like, you know, I've had it all wrong. Mm. You know, I thought they were bad, but now I'm seeing that they're not all bad. So it's discussed in the book. And to me, that was more relevant than the kisses were.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So now they're in DC. They're fighting. They get all these... get into fights with demons. They get help from demons, trying to find out where Misha is. And the demons are terrified of her because she is a powerhouse. She has like this hidden power that when she releases it, she transforms into like basically like this glowing orb. Ooh. And like she has a sword that like appears in her hand and it's like dripping like lava. So she could basically just slice through a demon and like incinerate them. Yeah. So yeah,
I hope they make this into a movie.
Right, it would be a good movie. Yeah. So they're afraid of her, but they're still willing to work with her as well. It gets down to the point where they find out that Misha might be at this place. They go looking for him there. Place is completely empty. So it's Trinity, Zane, and then one of the demons, Roth. And then I haven't mentioned these two characters. And then Layla, who is a half demon, half warden. And she was raised with Zane. Now, those two characters, they're from the first series. Those are the spin-off. Okay. Their stories are really told in the first series, the Dark Elements series. The four of them are in this house, basically, looking for Misha, but the house is completely empty. There's no clues to anything. When they get completely surrounded by a bunch of demons. So this is like, we're getting to the end of the book. I think from here on, it's spoilers. Anyone who doesn't want to listen, you don't have to. So they're surrounded by a bunch of demons and they're outnumbered, right? So they come out and they're like, fuck it, we're going to fight. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Get your golden sword ready.
Right. So she goes out there and actually at this point she's still hiding it, right? Oh, okay. Because they're here for her. Like they at this point they have figured out what she is. Okay. If she bleeds, the lesser demons become like...
Oh, they can smell it?
They can smell it, yes, and they want to eat her. Like, they'll destroy her. Okay.
So she's trying not to bleed.
Right. So she's just out there, and Zane is protecting her in his gargoyle form. Layla and Roth are like kicking ass because they're obviously demons or half demons, but they're overpowered.
Right.
And so Roth is madly in love with Layla.
Okay.
And so that's his priority. So when Layla gets injured, he's like, fuck this, he's trying to help her.
Yeah.
But they're surrounded, right? And so Trinity's seeing that they're being, they're getting their asses handed to them, and they're going to die.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want their deaths, I don't want to be responsible for their deaths. They don't deserve it. They've been helping me. So she cuts herself to like draw the attention off of them and give them an escape.
Sacrifice.
Yes. And so now all these lesser demons are like, they're going to come for her. And so what happens is the higher demon that's controlling them realizes that they're going to kill her and they need her alive.
Oh.
So
we don't know why. That's in the second book, right?
I think so. Yeah, like, they don't really say why, but they need her alive.
They just she just alludes to the fact that like Trinity's special and we don't really know why.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they mentioned like they could use like her blood and her like hair and stuff for like magic.
Okay.
But it's not that. It's sprinkled in, but you don't really know why.
Got it.
So he wants her alive. So he kills all his lesser demons to avoid them killing her.
Oh, that's funny.
But now they just have him to deal with, right? So at this point, Zane now has to protect Trinity from getting kidnapped.
Okay.
For whatever purpose these demons have for her, which obviously won't be good for her.
Right.
So Zane is now fighting with this demon, but he's no match. So he's getting his ass handed to him as well. So here comes Trinity. She lets her power go and she kills him.
She's like, don't do that to Zane.
Right. So she like slaughters him. And so she's trying to like look after Zane because he's really injured and she's worried that he's going to die when she hears Misha's voice. So she's like, oh, Misha's here. He's free. In her head, she thinks he's escaped. So Zane is picking up that something's off. Like, how is he here? What happened? So she goes up to him and she's like trying to get near him. Misha becomes like very cold and starts like talking back to her. So it turns out, surprise, surprise.
Misha's bad.
Misha's bad.
Shut the front door.
So this whole time, Misha was the one who was trying to like serve.
So that's the twist.
That's the twist.
Got it.
Yeah.
And when you were reading this book, were you surprised?
I started to have a little bit of suspicion because it seemed like there were some wardens that wanted her dead. And then there were some like foreshadowing in the sense that they brought up that, Misha was like unhappy being bonded. And then he would play it off like, no, I'm not. But like he had no control over his life because his whole life was literally dedicated to her. Right. And
so he's bitter.
Yeah, he's a little bitter.
So, yeah.
But he treated her nice. So it was kind of like, oh, you don't really know. Right. And then they also foreshadowed that there was a mistake that was made.
Oh, and the mistake was Misha being bonded to
Trinity. Yes.
Instead of Zane being bonded to Trinity.
Bingo.
Which I haven't even read the book, but I can gather that much just from reading the
like the connection that they had.
Yeah, because they're so connected to each other, which is basically the entire book report from Monster Liberty.
Right. And that's where that connection comes from. The whole time, that connection I thought was them, in fantasy books, there's a lot of mating bonds.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that's what it was. Like they were meant to be, mated, bonded that way. And no, he was supposed to be.
But there was no mating. We need to be clear about this. There's no mating in this book.
No, there is not. There's, and this happened earlier, obviously, because we're at the end of the book, where they have like this steamy scene.
Call it what it is. It's a dry humping scene.
Wet humping.
Wet humping.
Wet humping.
So wait, it's basically they're naked, but there's no penetration. And it's just, I'm going to read it for you. It's a scene of beautiful consent.
Yes. And think about what happened in the first chapter with Clay.
Exactly.
And then think about what she's going to read right now.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read just a little bit of it because it is really long. But it's so, innocent. It's stuff like, oh, I want to kiss him. Or, he pulled me to the edge of the vanity. He left me breathless. I curled my legs around his back. Stuff like that. Right. So, she really does, paint the scene here.
She builds it up.
Lots of built up feelings here. So I'm going to start where he says, this is what Zane says. There's something I should tell you. What? My gaze searched his face as I drew my fingers over the curve of his cheek. He turned his chin, kissing my fingertips. I've I've never done this before. My fingers stilled. My entire body stilled as his words sunk through. You mean you haven't done this? Well, I've done this. I've done stuff, but I haven't had sex. I don't know where this is leading, I said, tracing the curve of his shoulder. I just know that I like you, Zane. I really like you. And that has nothing to do with everything else that's going on.
And we should note that she's saying she likes him. That's what she's telling him. But her feelings run deeper. So she's in love.
Yes.
At this point.
Yeah. And
she's just not admitting it to him.
Okay. Interesting.
So, I think that's important.
Yeah.
They're showing that, love, there's feelings involved. It's not just sex.
Exactly. And yeah, she does kind of go into that even more.
And they're both virgins.
Yes. Yeah. And so the next thing she says is, I want you, but we don't have to do that. Which right there is modeling just, consent.
Right.
And also, that you don't have to do something that you don't want to do. The pressure that exists in society today among teenagers. And then he says, no, we don't. He lowered his head and kissed the corner of my mouth. Then he spoke again. But there's other stuff we can do. And that's basically what the next 2 or 3 pages, it seems like. Which, again, in the context of 500 pages, this is just 2 or 3 pages. And that is what they do. They do other stuff. So I'm going to find the quote, other stuff, and I'm going to read just a small part of that. So I like this part in particular. Zane says, you don't have to worry about this going too far. My fingers curled against the skin. I'm not, are you? Always, he murmured. And before I could question what he meant by that, he brought his head to the space between my neck and shoulder. Lowering his hands to my hips, he nuzzled my neck. He let his hands stray higher, nearly reaching the peak of my breast. I didn't move, didn't say anything, just waiting to see what he'd do. You tell me when to stop, and I will. I know. My voice was thick, raw. I trust you. Zane stilled and then pulled away. For a moment, I worried that I'd somehow said the wrong thing, but then his hands reached for the hem of my shirt. I would like to see you, touch you, taste you. His words sent a dark shudder through me. Yes. And there's the consent.
Right.
Which is so important. The fact that the author is modeling Trinity saying yes.
And he's constantly checking.
Yes.
Is this okay?
Exactly. And you don't see, and you and I growing up in a time where, on TV and in books, it was never like macho or masculine for the guy to be like, is this okay?
Right.
Are you okay? It was always just like, that was like somehow supposed to be like a turnoff.
Right.
And it was always, the turn on was always supposed to be like the woman like getting thrown against the wall.
And him taking control.
Yeah. And that's how I grew up. And that's like what I was taught was the norm. And it wasn't until, recently, and I started reading these books and like seeing it, the Me Too movement helped a lot.
Yes.
That it was like, oh, maybe, this shouldn't be the norm.
And this is why if we find like these passages hot, that is what we find hot. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's what women like.
Yes.
Is like, oh, look, he's worried about how she's feeling.
Exactly.
He's checking in on her.
Yeah.
It's not just all physical. There's a lot of...
Emotional.
Yes.
But, emotional is a bad word to Moms for Liberty.
Right.
Too many emotions. The fact that Moms for Liberty chose this passage to have a problem with perplexes me because of all the consent and like, the positive modeling of behavior. But I'll get to the quote-unquote juicy part, I guess. So at this point, they have taken their clothes off, but, they're still just kissing. And it says, his hand clasped my hip, urging me to move, to take what I wanted, but I didn't need urging. My body moved against his, and he moved against me. The heat of his body, the friction and the dampness, and the way he nipped at my mouth, it was all too much and not enough. Tension between my legs built quickly, sealing my breath, shocking me. The coil tightened deep inside me, and our movements became almost frantic. His growl of approval seared my skin, igniting the fire, and I came in a blinding rush, muscles tightening and loosening all at once. Never, ever had I felt something so powerful, so deliciously obliterating. I think we know what she's describing. Zane's quickly followed, the hoarse, soul-deep shout smothering my cries as the release shook us. And then his mouth was on mine, and he kissed me, and he kept kissing me, as if he wished to not simply taste me, but devour my very being. And I wanted to be devoured. I didn't know it was even possible to be kissed like that. I don't know how, but we ended up on our sides, our faces inches apart, our legs tangled, and his one arm under my ribs curled around me and the other around my waist. I didn't think I was ever going to breathe normally as we lay there, my heart still pounding. I cleared my throat. I didn't know it could feel like that, even without even, doing it. Zane's arms tightened and he pulled me to his chest, flesh against flesh. I didn't either. I smiled, and when he kissed the corner of my lips, my smile grew. So they didn't do it.
They didn't do it, right. And I thought once they removed clothes, right? Because they were basically dry humping at first.
Right.
Which that's just a vulgar way of saying it.
We're vulgar. The book
was
vulgar.
not, yeah. And So when they removed like panties and dropped pants, I was like, okay, they're gonna do it, right?
But they didn't.
They didn't.
Because they had a conversation about not being ready to do that.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, I get Moms for Liberty, sees this scene and they're like, oh, this shouldn't be in the school library. This doesn't have a place in schools and whatever. But that's the argument. And that's the question is like, when you're talking about middle and high school students and self-selection, right? And fantasy romance, what was it called? Phantomance? Romantasy.
Romantasy.
Not phantomance. When you're talking about, kids are drawn to romantasy.
Yeah.
And also, kids are humans with hormones and feelings. And when I say kids, I mean like 7th grade and up, which is what this book was rated for.
Right.
And also our media specialists know, how to select books and which books belong in the YA section and which books, should come with a trigger warning or whatever.
And it's a popular series, right? It had like over 4,000.
50,000.
50,000.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even
Goodreads.
close.
Yeah. So it's like, the readers are speaking for themselves. Like, this is a book that people want to read.
Right.
And we want to encourage reading. And apparently Moms for Liberty wants to encourage reading too. Don't they?
Supposedly.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, it goes back to, if you read a book about gay penguins, 1, you're not going to turn gay. 2, you're not going to want to be a penguin, right? If you read a book that features like this scene, it's not going to make you go out and like dry hump the first person you meet.
No.
Like, maybe if you are already in a relationship, but let me tell you,
it's not the book that's going to make you dry hump.
Yeah. The book is not going to, no one's going to be like, hey, I read this like really book and I want to try this like, position in this book. Like, that's just going to happen naturally because of a thing called hormones.
Right. I remember being 16 and dry humping. It wasn't because of a book.
Exactly. And we're never going to agree. So at some point we have to agree to disagree and just be like, you know what, you do what's best for your kid, but don't take the privilege of reading away from my kid.
That's all we're asking for.
Exactly.
Just worry about your own. Mm-hmm. It's not up to you to take books out of the library. Mm-hmm. That's the media specialist's job. You're not qualified. That's what I was
no
looking for.
qualifications.
No qualifications to deem a book good or bad.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think any book should be deemed bad, honestly.
So you have your opinions. That's what they have. They have opinions, and you're completely in your right to have those.
And once you start saying books with like, sexual content need to be banned, that's like a very dangerous line to draw, because then you're taking biology books and scientific books.
Right.
You can't just draw the line, because then pretty soon you've got any book that features a character that's kissing another character.
Right.
So it's like, what are you doing now? You're spending your precious time and resources on figuring out which books aren't allowed, when really you could be spending our time and resources and figuring out how to get a bus aid on the bus so that the bus driver can safely drive 30 kids to and from school and not have to worry about porn being passed around on their iPhones that their parents give them with no parental controls on them.
Which is what really happens. That's where they're getting porn. It literally
just happened.
That's where they're getting their porn from, not from books.
Yeah.
And, my daughter even told me recently that one of the school board members, I won't say which one, one of their children watches a lot of porn.
That's why I brought it up, because you told me that. Like, this is the kind of stuff that happens on buses.
And at this point, my child has probably seen porn because it's been yeah. And that's, he brought up anime porn. He's like, oh yeah, kids on the bus show it.
Because the bus is like one of the most dangerous places, because there's no supervision, because
right.
the bus driver is driving the bus and there's not enough money or people that are willing to be bus aides, because we're not putting our time and resources into this issue. We're putting our time and resources into fighting for books. In our case, and in Moms for Liberty and parents of, that perspective, they're trying to get these books banned when really they should be worried about what's happening on the bus.
Right. And I had to talk to him about how these, look, I know these videos are being passed around. If you've seen it, you just have to understand that's not realistic.
Yeah.
That's not, a lot of these videos always show women being degraded.
Yeah. That sex is something that is done to a woman instead of with a woman. And then, as an adolescent, if that's impacting your neurological connections, it's going to result in, like you said, these expectations that aren't realistic. And that's going to negatively impact their life.
Right.
And their relationships.
While this book is showing how to help.
The complete opposite.
Right. I would not have a problem with a teenager reading this and being like, okay, the first example with Clay, that's not what we want.
Exactly.
We want a Zane.
Exactly. I want to be a Zane, or I want to be with a Zane.
Right.
Or Zane could be with Zane. I mean...
But I mean, we have books that have that.
Yes.
And they want to remove them.
Exactly.
So.
Yep. That reminds me of something that Pete Buttigieg said. Someone was like criticizing him for, being a gay dad, and was like, I wish someone would just come to my house and see what happens when we get home. I'm making macaroni and cheese, and my partner is helping them do homework. And if someone were to just come in and see, two gay dads raising their kids, all they would see is love and kindness. They wouldn't see dark and sadistic, like sex acts, which is what people are labeling them as. Like, it's just love.
It's just a normal family.
Yeah. So on that note, don't ban books.
Ban bigots. This episode has been engineered and mixed by your hosts, Jennifer Mendoza and Courtney Green.
Be sure to follow our show on Twitter at Moms for Book Lib and Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Moms for Book Liberty with the number 4.
And leave us a review on Amazon Music or Apple Podcasts, or you can rate us wherever you listen to podcasts.